Thank you. Well, we are happy to have the report from the Court of Auditors at last, and to be able to discuss it when we have all been able to read it. Let me say that we have from the very beginning taken our cooperation with the Court of Auditors very seriously. We actually took initiative in 2013 to have a discussion with them and to present what we were planning to do and what we had done at the time. Now, recall that at the end of 2013, this company was not very big. We were still only 10 persons, and we had taken over, or we were at the very last days of 2013 taking over the assets that we were supposed to restructure and eventually sell. I would say at least 8 months later than we had hoped to do. I excuse my bad throat. You may think I've been in a big party yesterday, but in effect I was in Budapest giving a speech on the BMC and what we have achieved during the 2014 in particular. And it's generally recognized internationally that the BMC is a great success. We've been able to do a number of things, taking care of companies, restructuring companies that many other countries in this region would have liked to achieve but have not been able to achieve. It's also considered to be a well-run company that works with the procedures and the structures moving the company forward in a way, again, that many envy today. So that's the general international picture, even though you get a different picture sometimes when you read the press here. But I'll leave to Torbjörn now to talk about the particular report that we have. Let me again say that we certainly listen to the Court of Auditors. Where we come from, the auditors' reports are very important indeed. And we will take care of what we can, take care of what we haven't taken care of already, because recall, the report is on 2013, and most of what's in there has actually been handled during the year of 2014, when really this company started to work.
Thank you. I understand that there's been a press conference this morning from the Court of Auditors. I also understand that this has been portrayed to me as being quite, how should I put it, maybe some emotions were also slipping through. To me, the most important thing with the review we have of Court of Auditors is that we can get good and constructive feedback on the activities that we're doing, and if they're pointing out something that is actually not, that we can actually improve, we take this extremely serious in making sure that we incorporate that into what we're doing and make sure that we continuously improve this institution. Again, let me remind you that the Court of Auditor report was focusing on the very turbulent first year of operation in 2013. What the Court of Auditor report has done is to form an opinion on 3 things. They have looked at the compliance of BMC versus the legislative frameworks that were in place when it comes to BMC. They have also looked, of course, as the other institutions and frameworks around that, but I'm not going to comment on that. The second topic they have formed an opinion is around the efficiency of our operations. And the third one is the cost effectiveness. Let me just sort of then point out that they have not taken a view on the overall effectiveness of BMC. That is, did we actually achieve the ultimate goal of making sure that we made our part in terms of enabling a recapitalization of the 2 most important banks that actually were in such a shape that it would be highly questionable if they were allowed to continue operation entering into 2014. That has not sort of been part of the scope of the Court of Audit report, and I think we would have liked to have seen that also being audited, because I think that is actually the ultimate judgment if whatever money has been spent for good use. So let me then return to what they have looked at, and as I think you all know, you have been able to be informed that they have formed a negative opinion on all these three assets. We have a very different view on many of the things, and I think as a documentation after this press conference, you will be given basically our response to basically this report. We were given the opportunity to respond to a final draft. We did so. We have some 18 pages where we basically very clearly state sort of our point of view, and there are many things where we have simply different points of view in things. If I highlight a few things, and I'm going to do that because I think it's appropriate, because it's a sort of, they have formed a basis of their opinion on the number of things, and I do appreciate that they have a mandate and a scope that they have to fulfill when they do so, but I would say that they have not really taken into account that in 2013 we were a startup. Simply put that, we had a very difficult time, and things were changing for us, not due to ourselves, but as due to external factors that did cause some challenges for us in terms of overcoming. So, some of the things that has formed the opinion of the Court of Auditors is that we, for instance, failed to establish a bank stability fund. Now, this is clearly said in the law that there is a potential for us to do so, and we should do so, but it's intended actually for the situation where we, BMC, would recapitalize the banks, i.e. we, instead of the government, would have paid in the cash that was used to recapitalize the banks. That would have meant that we would become the owner of the banks, and those equities should be dealt with separately from the other assets we are managing, and therefore you need a bank stability fund. That's an accounting entity, not a legal person, but it's an accounting entity in order to recognize those assets separately. We failed to establish this for the simple reason that we did not do the recapitalization of the banks. And we also failed to do a strategy for that, simply because we didn't own the banks. So, although we did not comply with the law, which says that we should, I think there is a very good reason for this. Also, we failed to sign contracts with the bank which might outline the valuation of transferred receivables in more detail. That is correct, but again, if you remember, and I think this has been made very clear, we did not have access to this information, and it was withheld for us for a long, long time. We also failed, according to the BMC, to adopt a job position systemization charge in 2013, despite that we at the end actually had more than 10 employees, and as you know, there's a line there driven. We did add the last employees at the very end of 2013. Perhaps we should have waited to actually employ the people until we'd done a renewed active systemization, but we felt that we actually had an active systemization for the whole organization, which we intended to populate over time. So we felt we had the documentation that we actually needed for operational reasons in place. We have a different point of view with the Court of Audit if that is sort of what they would require from a more legalistic point of view, but it's again a different point of opinion. We also failed to define both the qualitative and quantitative measures for the remuneration. I would argue very strongly that it would be good practice to actually know what assets you own and what you think you can do with the assets before you put in place any remuneration which is based on variable pay. But again, the remuneration policy said that it should be in place. We felt it's more appropriate to actually know what the assets we are and what we think we can do with them before we set targets that are then linked more to reality. We've been also, I would say, it has been pointed out that we did not follow the public procurement when we, for instance, engaged consultancy firms, 2 consultancy firms, a human resource agency, a law firm, and a travel agency. We have both internal and external legal opinion saying that we were actually exempt from this. And for practical reasons, if you may know that the public procurement process takes quite a long time to actually do. So there is a clause in our law which basically says that we are in some cases exempt. We had to understand if we can actually operate, and we were given legal opinion saying that we could operate and actually set up our operations within time frame. We did so, and the Court of Audit has a different opinion in terms of if we were actually had to follow the public procurement process, which, as you know, takes actually months in order to actually do. So again, this is a difference in point of view. By now we are, of course, in another situation, so we can do things differently, but we are referring to the startup phase in 2013. Yes, there has also been failure from our side to incorporate and actually sell 10% of the assets in 2013. That is of course correct, but again, it doesn't reflect that, the assessment doesn't reflect that we got the assets only 10 days before the end of the year. And there's also been commentary around that we did not incorporate selling 10% of the assets as part of our financial planning in 2013. I would argue that it's not good business judgment to think you can sell assets before you get them, and even plan on using that money before you actually know that you can get them. So we did not do that, but it's been pointed out that that is not fully compliant with the regulation, and also not efficient operation, since it would be more efficient if we can use that proceeds, of course. So there has been a number of these, I think, bases. You will have the full documentation around this actually in this 18 pages, where we try to actually be very clear. This is the opinion of the Court of Auditors, and this is where we see our view. And I think, based on that, you can make up, I think, your own mind actually in terms of what we actually did and how we did that. So I'm not going to go through all of that, because I think there is enough discussion around that already. What I'd like to basically conclude with is that there is also a very helpful list of things that the Court of Auditors like us to see within 90 days to have implemented. That is, of course, a lot of it is related to the policies that is required for us. It is based on the situation and the lack of some policies as is viewed in 2013. We are now in 2015. So we have now, I think, 29 policies which are covering the points, and I would say that I see this part of the report as a very helpful checklist to understand if there's anything that we haven't covered by our policy making right now. So we will see that and make sure that we report back very quickly that those requests from the Court of Auditors have now been covered, and it was done actually quite some time ago by now. So I think that is to sum up from my side. We see a review like this very seriously. We take it constructively. We want to make sure that we improve. We are an institution which will continue to evolve over time. So timely and good constructive feedback we will welcome every time. We find it less useful when there is sort of more, when some of these reports are, I would say, for some reason leaked and then used to confront us with some negative things, and we have to deal with that. That is actually not helpful in terms of improving this organization. But we also know that this is part of the game, so we'll try to respond and be as transparent as we possibly can with you in order to take this forward. So with that, I think I leave it open for questions.